Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Alameda Mayor's Town Hall. I'm Sarah Henry, the city's Public Information Officer. Today, we're joined by a few guests to talk about the recent violence against Asian American and Pacific Islander community members and how we are addressing these abhorrent acts. Joining us are community members Serena Chen, Carl Chan, and Vinnie Camarillo, and along with District Attorney Nancy O'Malley, Alameda Police Department Captain Matt McMullen, and Officer Kevin Horikoshi. Please note that all participants have been muted. To submit a question for the mayor or for any of our guests, please use the chat feature. All of our town halls are recorded and are available on the city's website and on our YouTube channel. And today we've turned on the auto-generated captions to try to expand our accessibility. I'd now like to turn today's town hall over to Mayor Marilyn Ezzy Ashcraft.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone, and especially warm welcome to our panelists who I'm so grateful for you for saying yes when I asked you to join me in this town hall about a very important topic. So I'm here at Alameda City Hall, and outside on the flagpole, the flags are flying at half-mast, and that was at the request of President Joe Biden in honor of the victims of this latest tragedy, the murder of 8 individuals in the Atlanta area, 6 of whom were women of Asian descent. And today, as we speak, President Biden and Vice President Harris are in Atlanta, and they are calling on state leaders there. And this morning on NPR, I was listening, and one of the state senators, Georgia State Senator Michelle Au, who's of East Asian descent, called this simply the newest chapter of a very old story, this violence directed toward people of Asian descent, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders. But she said, but what can be new is our response to it. And so that's what I'm hoping to do today at a very local level to bring this story home and to inform ourselves, to hear from community members. We all know that we've come through a very tough year last year with the pandemic, but it was made even worse by the actions and the words of the former president, who used very racist terms about the pandemic and who was responsible for it. He was wrong. They were lies and fallacies, but nonetheless, they took hold and they've grown and spread. And we've seen in recent days and months in our country some very horrendous acts of violence, including right here in the Bay Area, in Oakland, and even in Alameda. But I am so honored and grateful to have members of our community, our Alameda County District Attorney, and members of the Alameda Police Department on our panel today. And I will tell you that one more panelist will join us. He's a high school student named Vinnie Camarillo, very conscientious student, because he said he couldn't join until he finished his math class at 12:30. So whenever Vinnie arrives, he will join the panel. With that, I want to just say a huge thank you to all of our panelists. Serena Chen, we've known each other, been friends a long time. Every time we talk, she tells me something new in her background. She's amazing. But she has very personal connections to what just happened in Atlanta. She's actually taught classes on these kinds of topics, or topics that involve violence and discrimination toward Asian Americans. And so we're going to start with Serena. And Serena, please, the floor is yours. And thank you again for saying yes when I reached out.
I always say yes to an opportunity to kind of help people start thinking about issues that we haven't thought about. Back in the day, I helped teach the Asian women's class at Asian American Studies at UC Berkeley. And in that class, we learned that Asian women are sexualized and fetishized.
Fetishized, I've been practicing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fetishized, yeah.
Because all you have to do is look back at the wars of the last 70 years. And I say this in that in World War II, a lot of American GIs, men, went and served in Asia, and basically may have had their first sexual contact with a Japanese woman or an Asian woman. And in every single succeeding war foreign countries, it's been an Asian country or an Asian country where R&R is provided, you know, and basically it's caused entire generations of American men who have served a kind of distorted perspective, and not really realizing that women who are impoverished, who are forced, who have no other source of income are required to give sexual favors or sell sex. When I was young and, you know, a lot cuter, I'd walk down the street and some older man would come up to me and say, "Arigato." And obviously he served in World War II and recreated in Japan. And then a few years later, you know, someone would come up and try to talk to me in Korean, veteran of Korean War, right? By Vietnam, maybe I was getting a little long in the tooth, but I just have to say, and I'm just laughing because it's ridiculous, that Asian women are one-dimensional. I was called Susie Wong, and I actually had an opportunity to interview Nancy Kwan, fast forward, you know, and she had created such an iconic image of Susie Wong that in the minds of a lot of adolescent Asian men, I mean, not Asian men, Asian and non-Asian men, that Nancy Kwan was the epitome of feminine beauty, and we're smaller and petite, and we're perfect until, you know, you realize that we might be tiger women too, you know, or dragon ladies, but we're always just one-dimensional. And this incident just brought back all those memories for me. And until we begin to see each other as fully formed human beings. And, you know, I try to keep something back with the mayor so that every time we talk, she finds out, "Oh, you're this too."
Another surprise.
But the whole thing is having a relationship with a person and being able to share who you are, and also being willing to listen and being willing to ask questions. And I just recall this incident about in the 1990s where a woman, I was at advanced leadership training in Washington, DC. And one of the facilitators of the group says, and she's white, and she says, "You know, Serena, I look at you and I don't think of you as Asian. I hope that's a compliment." And I really didn't know how to respond because I am who I am. And if a person thinks they can say to a person of color, I see you as a human being and I don't think of you as being a race, that means they're not really seeing the whole person. And so I just ask everyone to get to know your neighbors, your grocery clerks, your housekeeper, people, your best friend. Maybe you've never talked to your friend who is of another race about how they feel, and be willing to listen. So that's my plea for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Serena. And we're going to leave time at the end. So audience, if you have questions, Sarah will probably ask you to type them into the chat box. Is that how it goes? And so our next speaker is Carl Chan. Carl is an Alameda resident, but he is also the president of the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce. And so these acts of violence toward Asian American, usually seniors in Chinatown, have just struck very close to him physically and to his heart. And in fact, we talked on the phone last week, and Carl, he was so distressed. He said, "Marilyn, I can't even watch the news. It's just too much for me." He has had the sad task of talking to the families of some of these victims who lost their lives, and just absorbing all that shock and grief and horror. So I want to call on you next, Carl, and please talk to us about what it's been like for you over in Oakland, Chinatown, but then you're an Alameda resident too, and please share your perspective. Welcome and thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just first, I want to say thank you for so many of you sending your love and support to our Asian community. Especially with so many incidents have happened. And I also want to say thank you to our mayor, because when she called me last week, just like among many of you, sent us the love and support. It's so heartwarming. Of course, you already know so many incidents, keep on going and ongoing. And we thought that we're able to somehow slow down all these incidents. But actually, it seems it's getting worse. I also want to be so proud saying that I've been working with District Attorney Nancy O'Malley, and she has been so instrumental in helping us not only to understand all these many incidents, but also bringing people, in justice for justice for our many victims and the families. But when I'm seeing the screen, I'm seeing many people I know, familiar faces. So I think it's good to be talking among friends here as well. Now, I have been vocalizing not only for the Asian community, and have been talking about besides the Asian community. I believe that now that crimes are all over, whether you're in Oakland, Alameda, or anywhere you are in this country, seems to me that many of us could be becoming targets of crime. And at this time, the focus is really on the Asian Americans and the Asian community. Now, I also want to focus one more item. I think let us all be concerned with. And I kept talking about we need to protect our seniors, not only about Asian seniors, about seniors all over. Now, and people thought, what are you talking about? You look at many incidents now. Many of our seniors being attacked, especially in the morning. Now, I'm a long-time resident in Alameda. Seems to me that most of our seniors, they're getting up early in the morning. It's just a routine, and they just want to walk on the streets. And then many of them are being attacked. Also, I want you to know that there are many attacks that happened. Many of them did not report the incidents. And I'm sure, Nancy will tell you, District Attorney, in fact, last year, Nancy O'Malley's office and myself, and also the mayor of Fremont, we actually recording, and asking people to reporting, incidents. You know what? They would call me and they will tell even, Nancy's office. But when they're saying that, can I take down your name and phone number so that we can, starting all this process to prosecute the people? You know what they say? Oh no, I don't want to do that. Okay. So whatever you are seeing, and even though, Stop AAPI hate, the incidents they've been talking about, there are over 3,000, incidents reported. But I will tell you, there's only a fraction of these numbers, actually happening. And, in our survey, I would say is way less than maybe less than 20%. I think it's probably about 10% of those folks are willing to come out and to reporting incidents. And we've been asking why. The first thing they told me, they are afraid of retaliation. And they're also being afraid to be identified if they are being, as a spokesperson is picking out of these incidents, and people are afraid. So I think that's the reason why, we have to be focusing on how we can help many of these, victims. But most importantly, the last, a few weeks, I've been giving some thought. I think we all already know the problems. I think it's all about the solutions, how we can battle and figure out ways and to so that, all these incidents won't happen, not only to the Asian community and not only, happening to the seniors. It shouldn't be happening to anyone. Because, one major concern that people are talking to me, whether they're victims or the families of victims, they feel strongly that why can't we walk freely on our own streets and feeling safe? I also want to point out one thing that lately is a major topic about the police. I know that people keep talking about the defunding the police and don't trust the police. But in our community, which I have talked to and representing many of these, employees, businesses, and also many of our residents, especially the seniors, they trust the police. They want to see the police. But we want to see changes, okay? Changes mean, there are maybe some bad police officers out there, but they are not all of them, okay? So I think got to be fair. So I myself, I know that people keep telling me, Carl, don't talk about the police. We don't want the police. It is so unfair. So I want to also utilizing this time that I think, we should also respect those people in uniforms and helping us, and they are doing a good job. For those bad apples, I'm not here to speak for them. but I'm here to speak for those who are truly serving us and being the best of our citizens as well. So with that, I think I better stop because I know there are other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl. And next, we're going to go to our Alameda County District Attorney, Nancy O'Malley. And just a week ago, Thursday, I was at the Alameda County Mayor's Conference. All 14 Alameda County mayors meet on a monthly basis. And my vice president, who is Mayor Lily May of Fremont, shared that she had done this public service announcement video with Carl Chan and District Attorney O'Malley, and that the district attorney came up with tips and ideas. And I said, I think I have like mayor envy. I said, I want that for my city. And so the next day I emailed the district attorney. Within minutes, she emailed back and said, I would love to participate in your town hall. And so District Attorney Nancy O'Malley, thank you for carving time out of your busy schedule. And we would love to hear from you on this very important and serious topic. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor, and really thank you so much for having this town hall. And I feel proud that I'm speaking on this panel with Carl Chan and with Serena and with the police officers from Alameda PD. I am also an Alameda resident, so I'm very focused on things that are happening in our area. We started seeing it started with hate words and people that were yelling racial slurs about a year ago. I started a hate crime hotline that we have, and I'll give you the number before I finish. Because we were hearing about, it sort of goes in stages, and Carl just addressed this, that there are times when there's hate crimes committed against people who are African American. Then we've seen crimes committed against Muslims, and then when the pandemic started, then we saw crimes starting to be committed against Asian Americans. Those crimes were mostly verbal, and even Mayor Lily May shared her own experience, and people in my office who are Asian Americans have also shared their experiences of being verbally attacked. But in the last several months, we've seen a huge uptick, as Carl was saying, in these other attacks. Now, I will say that for the most part, crime had been down, lower level crime, because people were pretty much sheltered in place for a while. But the serious crimes like robberies, like murders, like shootings, those were all up, at least the way we were seeing it countywide. So we've given a lot of focus to this, and then of course more recently. So last year we provided services to over 1,700 Asian Americans in the county who are victims of violent crime. That doesn't include victims who are victims of misdemeanor level crime or lower level crime. And it also doesn't include all types of crimes. But when I broke down what were robberies, what were murders, what were assaults, that number is over 400 of that 1,600 or 1,700. So we've seen a big increase in the crimes committed against Asians, and we're seeing it on our streets every single day. Carl made the point that for a lot of Asian individuals, especially those that have immigrated from other countries where the police are not necessarily their protector or the government is not helping them, that we know that there are so many more crimes that are happening that are not being reported. So a lot of our work is to get out into the community. I created a special response team that's head by Annie Esposito. She herself is from China, and Rebecca C., who's very well known in the Asian community in Oakland and the Bay Area. And so what we feel is that we've made great headway with talking with victims and educating them about what it means to report, so that they aren't afraid that they will be arrested, and the ways we can help protect them and provide them with resources because they're victims of crime. And we've seen more people starting to come to us and people from the Asian community to ask more questions about, well, what happens if? And I think it's really important that I have individuals who are Asian to be out in the community talking to people that are the same nationality or ethnicity as they are. So on my team, we have some prosecutor from Korea, we have a prosecutor who's Vietnamese, we have prosecutors who are Asian, We have prosecutors who are Muslim. So we make it's very, very mindful to make sure that we are being appropriate in how we're able to educate people. The hate crime is a crime in California, and that is a crime that's committed either because actually that somebody is actually a certain nationality or ethnicity or gender or perceived of any of those characteristics. So we look hard. It's not hate crime it seems like it should be very obvious, but it's not that easy to prove in court because we really have to prove that the person committed the crime because of the ethnicity of the Asian American rather than just somebody walking alone in the morning or at night, or somebody who's elderly, who looks frail or easy targets. But I will tell you that the robberies that we're seeing, which is really rampant, almost all of those individuals that have been caught by the police have prior robbery crimes. And one individual we're prosecuting now, who is the one who we've charged him with murdering Mr. Ho, the elderly man who was taking his morning walk, he has multiple robbery priors. And we do is we go back and look to see who were those victims and were they also victims, Asian victims. So we've been very proactive. We have posters that we have created for businesses or for the city council or for city buildings to put up that talk about let us help you. Here are the numbers you can call if something happens to you. And then the let us help you is also coupled with people from my office going out into the community to talk or doing these types of calls to talk to members of the community to say, please let us help you. We have resources, we can help you, and we can also protect you. And then lastly, I'll just say our hotline number has been very effective. We've had it for about 8 years now. And that number is 510-208-4824. That hotline, sometimes what the hotline calls are telling us that somebody called someone by a racial slur. And if they know who did it, then we go out and we talk to the person who did it and try to educate them and sensitize them about their discriminatory practice or their xenophobia. But if it's crime, then we follow up on every single call that we get. And right now we have, I think, 12 hate crime cases pending that are hate crimes alone. So with the hotline has been very effective, and we also allows us to give information to groups that want more information like this. Really important. The last thing I'll say is we made the posters, and I know I sent some copies to Sarah, but any city that is interested in having posters for their community, they have on the front will be in English, on the back will be in Chinese, and that way it can be in a store window so we can be seen from both sides. We have them in multiple languages, not just Chinese, because the point that Carl made, which I can't reinforce strong enough, is that there's a lot of hate going on in our community. And the Asian community is not the only targeted community. No community is immune from it. So we do a lot of work trying to make sure our communities are safe and work closely with law enforcement so that we're working together to keep our communities safe. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, District Attorney O'Malley. And for those of you watching, Sarah, I bet you're going to post the information on the city's website about those contact numbers afterwards.
Absolutely. And also the posters and all of the resources that the district attorney sent. I'll post all of that online.
Thank you. So I have word that our illustrious high school student and president of the sophomore class at Encinal High, Vinnie Camarillo, has now finished his math class and joined us. And Vinnie, I have got to know him over the summer. He's participated with me in a dialogue with youth of color and members of APD. He is on one of the subcommittees of our police reform and racial justice effort, one of the 5 subcommittees, and he is just a rock star. But Vinnie really caught my attention even more when he spoke at a couple of our city council meetings about not only his experience being out and about and being called names, but his concern for his family members. So I want you to hear from Vinnie, from this young man, his perspective. So Vinnie Camarillo, welcome. Thank you so much for squeezing us into your busy school day. Where's Vinnie?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
There you are. Hi.
I'm Vinnie Camarillo. I'm a 10th grader at Ensenal. And I mean, I guess just some of my experience here, just with like harassment, I guess, or racial slurs, happen whenever I'm alone. So it tends to happen when I'm like out biking or running. And so when I like pass somebody, it's just like a holler and I don't stop. I just ignore it. I try to ignore it, but then like I ignore it in that time, but later on when I'm thinking about it, it just clogs my mind and I'm just like, why are people like this? Because, you know, COVID-19 it just doesn't manifest in specific people who are like white, Black, Asian. It can be transmitted to everyone. It's not just Asians to blame, which is why I'm just appalled by people's behaviors because it happens every single time I'm out. Yesterday, or no, Wednesday was my free day from school. And I was outside again, biking along Atlantic and the new bike path. And it happened to me again. And this time they actually stopped me on my bike and confronted me in my face and said to go back to my country. And they blamed me for bringing the virus here.
Vinnie, I'm so sorry. No, take a moment.
Honestly, I was scared what they were going to do because it was like an aggressive way. And I wasn't sure if they were going to assault me in a way. And in that moment, I wouldn't know who to call because just with what I'm thinking about 911 and my experiences with 911, I just don't know who to call. And I can't memorize this hotline from reading a pamphlet or just memorizing it, reading it over and over. I can't memorize that number in my mind when I'm in that moment. And I'm scared too when my mom goes out to exercise, go on runs, or just in general outside of our house. I'm scared for her, and I'm scared for my grandparents. Sorry.
No, not at all. I'm sorry that you're having these experiences. I think we all know that being a teenager in the best of times is a challenging experience. And now all of our students, kids have gone through a whole year where they've been distance learning, not being able to interact with their friends the way they would like to. And then when you think of at such a young age, having to deal with this sort of thing, it is heartbreaking. And also, this is Alameda. We pride ourselves on being a safe community, right? And Vinnie, I wonder if it would be okay if we switched over to the police representatives now for a minute and come back to you. I just want to shout out, I think you've seen just a little glimpse into this young man's character and intellect. And I want you to know that he's running for student body president of Ensenal High for next year as a sophomore. But he's wise beyond his years, I would say. But with that, I'm going to go over to our two Alameda Police Department representatives. We've got Captain Matt McMullen and Officer Kevin Horikoshi, who both graciously said yes when I asked them to participate in this town hall. So, you know, I actually would like you to start, maybe you, Matt, to start with what you just heard from Vinnie, because I'm alarmed. What, you have thoughts? Do you have suggestions? Thank you, and welcome to both of you. So please go right ahead.
Well, first off, as you said, that was gut wrenching and hard to listen to. But I want him to know that through you, if it's okay with him, or through the private chat, I will give him my personal cell phone number so that we could follow up on what occurred yesterday. That is not acceptable for the Alameda Police Department or in our city whatsoever. Hate crimes seriously threaten our community, which is built on its strength of diversity. These crimes represent particularly heinous forms of violence, which people are victimized because of their skin color, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or disability. And these, as Vinnie eloquently put, are tragic events that we need to address and take very seriously. These attacks on him and across the country have been disturbing and heartbreaking, to say the least. And I want him to know that we stand in solidarity with him and with our island community against hate. Hate crimes are unique, I think, because the victims of hate are targeted because of a core characteristic of their identity. And we acknowledge that it could feel degrading and frightening and put our Asian American, Southeast Asian, and Pacific Islander communities on edge and make them feel vulnerable. And those fears and distress that he expressed have far-reaching and negative consequences on the community. But I want him to know that if he calls the Alameda Police Department, we will respond, and we will respond quickly, and we will apprehend suspects when appropriate. We will recognize that with Nancy O'Malley, that investigation, prosecution, and response to these crimes are critical for developing and maintaining the respect and appreciation for Alameda and its growing diversity. And I want him to know that we are here for him and for all of our community. Our department does not tolerate these acts. And we need all Alamedans, whether it be those experiencing it themselves or witnessing it, to call us, report any threats or attacks, and let us know if you're the victim of what you have seen or what we have seen occurring throughout the US. We must come together, and I mean this, we must come together and stop hate and ignorance. There's no place for it in Alameda or in America. And I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be here, Mayor. I want to hear the concerns. I appreciate being on the call just to hear Vinnie. And I want the community to know that they could reach out to me directly, and maybe Sarah Henry could post my email. If there's any time that they feel uncomfortable, or that through the hotline. And in closing, I just want to thank Nancy O'Malley. Her organization reached out to us in a collaborative effort months ago or weeks ago. I can't quite recall, but sent an email with contacts so we can provide victims with the appropriate resources if the circumstances arise in which they need that, which I hope doesn't continue to occur. And lastly, Vinnie, I'm sorry. I'm proud and of you to come forward with what you said. I think it takes a lot of courage, and we're here for you. We really are.
Thank you, Matt. Kevin, did you want to add anything to that, or anything about what we've talked about so far in this town hall?
Yeah, I would. I would like to echo what the captain said. Vinnie, I think it takes a lot of courage for you to, virtually come in front of all these people and talk about your experiences. I heard two things that were alarming to me. One is obviously the incident itself, or the incidents that the captain kind of discussed with you. But the other thing that I kind of heard, and maybe I interpret this wrong, but you didn't feel comfortable calling the police and you would rather have called the tip line. We all have these ideas or beliefs based on experiences, I believe. So if you had a bad experience with the police department, I apologize for that. one thing I want you to understand, and maybe she can correct me if I'm wrong, but with the tip line, it's just a line to call, and they will look into whatever it is you're saying happened. If it's an incident where something is going on right in front of you, definitely not the right place to call. The right place to call would be the police department. My offer to you, very similar to the captain's offer, is, you know, I realize there's COVID restrictions going on right now, and we're not supposed to have people in the building and whatnot, but I would offer to you that I'm willing to show you around. I'm willing to introduce you to the members that we have at our police department. Again, I don't know if you had a bad experience with us, and if you did, again, I apologize for that, but I want to try to show you kind of like what Carl said. Not everybody in a group is bad, right? Some people may have different characteristics, and you don't jive well with them, but we're all different here in the police department, just like we're all different here in the community. So in closing to you, Vinnie, like I said, I will get you my number and my email through Sarah Henry or the mayor, and I'm opening that invitation to you to try and get a different perspective on our police department.
Thank you, Kevin. Nancy, did you want to add anything to what we heard from Vinnie?
No, Vinnie, you're so brave to share that with us, and I know it's as you started to tell it, the emotion of it caught up with you, and I understand that, and I see that, and I think that, you know, what is important that we try to get the message out is that this is traumatic. It is violent. When even if it's just words, it's violence that's being committed against people, and that causes trauma. And we want people to be able to get help, to be able to process what happened to them, and also for people that have been hurt. We have a big victim witness division. We have a family justice center that has a full trauma recovery center for free trauma treatment for people, and we speak all languages, because it's important to me to have a staff that looks like the community that we serve. Kevin was correct that the tip line, the hotline, is really to tell us when things are happening, and then we follow up. But if there's ever an emergency situation, then it's important to, I think, to call 911, and not to try to take it into your own hands to do something, because you just don't know. What I believe is there are a lot of ways that we can help people who are committing these crimes. We can educate them. We can put them in a program. We can help them get into a program that gives them a pathway out. We have a lot of collaborative courts where people that are committing crimes can go get finish their education, get a job training, so they aren't hurting people to have money. But we cannot make these crimes inconsequential either. And I know that there's some efforts, you know, we don't want to over mass incarcerate or over incarcerate, but we also can't make these crimes that are happening based on race or that are crimes of violence like robbery and assault without any kind of consequence. It's important for us to be able to use that to help those that want help, that are committing these crimes, or to educate the people that are doing it to stop, so they can get educated and stop it. But it's not okay for us to turn our head and say, oh, well, we're not going to address it. And we won't turn our heads and say we aren't going to address this.
Thank you. And one of the reasons that I'm so pleased to have these representatives from, well, our very own district attorney, but also from the police department is I've been appalled, as I imagine many, if not all of you have, by the response from the, I think it's the Cherokee County, Georgia sheriff to the murders of these individuals in these spas, and saying, oh, well, the assailant was having a bad day, and then let him answer the question, did you do this because of a racial motivation? And I just, I like to think that that's the exception rather than the rule, but it is certainly not the way we do things here. But with that, I know from Sarah Henry that we have lots of questions coming in from the audience. And so we want to switch over now. I should probably ask Vinnie, did you want to add anything else at this time, Vinnie?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
and thank you again. Okay, Sarah, why don't you get us started on questions?
Great. So I have a handful of questions and a handful of comments. So I'll just go through and kind of TikTok through them. The first one says, the first question is, can Alameda join other Alameda County cities condemning anti-Asian hate crimes with updates citing current events?
So what I will say is that the Alameda County Mayor's Conference passed a resolution, unanimously approved a resolution condemning these kinds of hate crimes. And at the next city council meeting, which is, what is it, April 6th, I think, we will be bringing our own proclamation forward. But then there was an action part of that.
Right, joining other cities and condemning. I think this is in response to what the district attorney was talking about.
Well, I certainly want to get a hold of all these, the information, the posters and the things. And also, I would love to put whatever Asian American API organizations, faith groups in touch with the district attorney's office for, I love that you're doing outreach into the community. I think that's really important to be able to do it, education. So I'd say that's a yes.
Great. Okay, the next question is asking if the city of Alameda could declare that it is an anti-racist city and sponsor a Unity Day to encourage cross-community relations and how we should be allies and allies to equity and inclusion.
We will look into that. Thank you.
Great. This person says in the future, and the district attorney talked about this a bit, but maybe for our police department, in the future, in the case of Vinnie, how should we contact the police in a moment of a crime? Is it appropriate to call 911?
Good question.
The answer to that is absolutely yes. In a moment of a crime, please call 911, hit the SOS. Recently, we've been able to launch rapid SOS at the Alameda Police Department. So you could even text in if you feel like you can't speak at the moment, and we will contact you through the text messages and then send an officer out. And it is my commitment that we will respond and do it swiftly. And if it doesn't happen, please contact me. I should be able to fix whatever shortcomings we have.
And I was going to say, is it with, I know that you can text 911. Matt, do you just text on your, phone and that's how you text 911? I've never tried it.
That is my understanding. I haven't had the opportunity to try it either, but I also know that there's a rapid SOS where you could swipe and sometimes that will immediately call. I will also turn it over to Kevin, who might have a little bit more technical expertise in this arena.
Enlighten us, Kevin.
So I did test it out with one of our citizens, one of our disabled citizens who was kind of curious about it. So we tested it out on her phone. We texted 911, and then in the comment line or the message line, whatever, it worked.
Okay.
But I can't guarantee you that's always how it works. That's how it worked for us that day.
Okay, if you're texting. All right.
The only other thing I was going to add to that last question, and I'm not at work, so I can't look up the phone number, but maybe Sarah can. We also have an emergency phone number as opposed to the non-emergency number.
I posted it in the chat.
Okay. I was just going to say, people might want to add that to their phones as like a common number. Sometimes 911 gets called and it goes to somewhere else just based off the cell towers. So you might want to add that phone number to the emergency phone number in case you are in an emergency.
Get it into your contacts in your phone. Good.
And that number is 510-337-8340 for those on Facebook Live and do not have access to the chat.
All right.
Okay.
I understand that one of our community members, Alice Leib-Bitker, would like to share a personal experience. And Alice is another a longtime friend of mine. We have daughters the same age. Alice, Claire is actually joining us via, I mean, from far away, but she's actually joining us. But Alice, please, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Vinnie, I want to say thank you. You have inspired me and motivated me to share my own personal experience. So it was several months ago. I think it was at the peak, maybe during the second surge, and maybe President Trump was saying something again. So I was leaving office from Santa Clara and make a turn on Broadway, and there was a traffic light. I was waiting to turn on Otis. So there were 2 or 3 cars in front of me. All of a sudden, there was this big white car just like zoomed by and stopped next to me and yelled. I think he said, "Bitch, go back to China," something like that. And then he went straight forward, went to, go across Otis Street down to Broadway. And I was frozen. I was shocked. And so then the light changed. I make a turn and left. But I at that point, I was totally conscious about, I was afraid to look. I was afraid to have eye contact with him. And I was driving home, and then I felt, God, I should have taken a picture. And when I get in the house, I began to cry. I said, this person just did that to me. I'm so scared. And so I didn't think about it's a hate crime, but from today's session, it say that even verbal attack, it can be. And I didn't think about it, but thank you for the education. I think this is what we need, in the sense of what's been said by Serena and Carl is we need a lot more education among ourselves and conversation and see how we can get over this. This is a real disaster situation that not only just our community, but I would say the whole country is facing.
Thank you for sharing that, Alice. I'm so sorry.
So
Yeah.
Vinnie had mentioned not
Yes.
being able to memorize the hotline, and then somebody else noticed that we need 911 to redirect calls to some of the different numbers that were maybe on the poster. And then, of course, I'm going to share the resources that the district attorney sent to our dispatch and then online. But someone else said that it sounds like it might be helpful to have a text number like victim to 12345, something like that, where it's easier than a phone number to remember. And then that text line could automatically send these other numbers that people could call. So definitely, these are just kind of comments that we can continue to look into. Another comment, somebody says, thank you so much, Vinnie. I'm fearful of my mom going out as well, and I told her I'll accompany her. However, it's awful to lose the freedom of movement for our vulnerable communities, especially as they've finally gotten the COVID vaccines. And then another person says, please let Vinnie know that most of us can identify with what he has just experienced at some level and that we all commiserate with him. And then another person says, thank you to the district attorney for the reassurance that hate incidents against Asians will be taken seriously. Thank you for the tip line and staff for also being composed of diverse Asian community members. And then the next is a question for Vinnie. This person has asked, do students have a forum to discuss this issue? They would like to see an API roundtable at AUSD to create a safe space for student discussion and support. And they also mentioned that APD has an API roundtable.
Vinnie.
So the district actually doesn't hold an API roundtable, so there's not really a place to talk about it, except for we have a school-based health center that they try to host drop-ins where we can talk, but that's pretty much all we have.
Okay, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I think I saw one of our school board members on the screen. Also my friend Jen Williams. So, you can put your friends on the spot. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Is there anything you might want to add?
I do. AUSD actually does have an API roundtable that's full of a mixture of students and community members. And so I'd love to put Vinnie in touch with the chair, another Alameda resident and good friend of mine, Willie Nguyen. So maybe Mayor, you can get me Vinnie's personal information and I can hook him up with our roundtable.
I can, or maybe share that information with Vinnie. Vinnie, you had your hand up. Go ahead. I think you can unmute. Yeah.
I feel like that should be more publicized, I think, because for me, I think I'm pretty well informed about what's happening, but for example, I didn't know that there was an API roundtable.
I'll absolutely get that information to you.
Yeah, no, I know this has been a very tricky year for communicating and get things out, but this is one of the more involved students in AUSD. So thank you, Jen.
Yeah, happy to connect.
Another a person that I'm about to unmute is the Reverend Michael Yoshi. He was going
Reverend
to talk about
Yoshi.
the different roundtables.
You know, I saw, this is another longtime friend of mine and huge champion of civil rights going back so many years. And I saw you and I thought, oh, I might just call on Reverend Yoshi to say a few words. So welcome, Reverend Yoshi, please.
Thanks, Mayor. I was the one that put in that question about the API roundtable because I'm on that roundtable. Willie Wynn is the chair, but there hasn't been a meeting during the pandemic. And I've been emailing him because some of us had a meeting last week to talk about this concern. And we wanted to try to reach out to students and families, and particularly through that. And I haven't heard back from him yet. So Jennifer, maybe we can be in touch about that. And Vinnie, it'd be great if you could have that support of the roundtable. There was a student on the roundtable as well the last time we had a meeting, and there were supposed to be some conversations with students, but that was really pre-pandemic. And there's a program we used to do in the school district called the CARE Multicultural Student Relations Program, which we had going on for about 12, 14 years. And it was really to empower students on racial conversations together. And I think there's a model we've had that we could probably try to bring back if it's good timing for the district to do something like that. Because I think it creates safe space for students to talk about race and also develop multicultural relationships and empower people to speak up where you need to, and then have fellow students who can support each other in this kind of situation. That was kind of in the 90s. We started it kind of after the racial crisis with the police around that period. And then it went kind of through the 2000s or so. But it kind of sunsetted kind of toward the latter part of the 2000s. So anyway, Jennifer, I'd love to be in contact with you about it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You see what great resources and connections we have in our community. I love this. Sarah, we're kind of at the top of the hour, but
I know we still have a bunch of questions. I don't know how long we can go, but the next one I can speed talk.
Speed talk, yeah.
For our police department, can we look at providing pepper sprays for the Asian community members who feel unsafe? This person says that they're especially effective for the elderly who cannot easily fight back.
Thoughts on pepper spray, and I'll open that up to all of our folks, Matt McMullen, Kevin Horikoshi, and DA Nancy O'Malley. Kevin, you unmuted first, so you go right ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if the department can necessarily provide the pepper spray for the community. However, places like Big Five or any local sporting goods stores typically have pepper spray for civilian purchase.
DA O'Malley?
Well, I worry about people taking the matter into their own hands, although I think that we just saw in San Francisco the man who attacked the older Asian woman and she beat him down. And thank gosh she wasn't injured herself, because that could have turned out much worse. But people do have the right to defend themselves. And I know we had a situation here in Oakland where the shop owner came out when a woman across the street was being attacked, and he has a legally licensed to own and hold a gun, wear a gun. He was escorting his own customer out because he was worried about her safety, and he fired not directly at them. And we did not file charges against him because there's a law that says you can defend yourself, you can defend others. And it just has to be evaluated in the context of what was the immediate need for self-defense.
Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, can I also
Oh,
offer
of course,
a solution?
Carl,
Okay.
Carl, please.
So what happened is that, in the Chinatown community and also for the seniors. So what we have done, we're actually giving out some what they call the safety alerts. So instead of whistle, it just sound, and then people will come and help you. And also we are giving out the air horns, and which was very effective. In fact, quite a few incidents, being avoided, when they are being attacked or there are people coming and to rob them. It was very effective. So if those folks may be needing it, we can raise some money and then give it to mostly our most vulnerable population, especially the seniors. But also one thing I want people to understand, I'm so thankful for many of you are here today attending this town hall, because I know a mayor for many years. People ask me, is this going to be a lip service? But I said no, because they are politicians and they are also public servants. So I understand that many of you are going to be here serving us. But I also want to emphasize two things. People are saying, someone who's white, automatically they think that they must be racist. It's not true. But also, I also want people to understand that we also need to trust our police, okay? Because they are here to help us. So I want people to not be afraid calling 911, calling the police, because they're here to protect us. So those are the things that I really want to emphasize. But also, don't be afraid going to a district attorney, because they are going to be here to help us and to understand the issue, and then they will help us to stop all these hate incidents happening throughout the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Carl. Carl, there were two things you had said, air horns, and what was the other one?
The personal safety alert.
Okay.
And in fact, the reason why we had that, because when incidents happen, we have people from New York. They actually raise the money and sending us those safety alerts, and we will give them to mostly the seniors. So if we feel that it can be important for our Alameda seniors, we can actually raise some dollars, and we can also distribute to some of our seniors, in Alameda as well.
But what is it? Or Matt, you've got your hand up. Are you?
I only have my hand up because I appreciate the comments from Carl. Our police department has recently ordered such devices, and we have them in stock. And it's just a matter of distributing those things. They're similar to that.
We can get the word out. Wow.
So well.
Can I let me test this as the alert?
Oh, okay.
So you want to call for the attention, but the air horns is actually 10 times louder than this one. Okay, so I think for seniors it's easier to carry something smaller like this.
Okay, all right, we can work on that. Thank you for letting us know, Matt. Okay, we're going to do a hard stop at 1:10, so get your questions in, and Sarah, talk fast.
And we probably won't get through them all, but we'll try to answer the rest on social media if we can do that after the fact. The next question is for you, Carl. Do the community patrols in Oakland Chinatown present concerns around racial profiling?
Absolutely, that's something that we have to be careful. So that's the reason why when we are setting up all this patrol, three things got to be there to be involved. Number one, we want to make sure that there's no political agenda. Okay, so we don't want people to come in because of trying to publicize certain agenda. Secondly, no violence involved. Okay, and thirdly, definitely no racial bias and no racial profiling. Okay, so those are the three criteria when people are coming and joining us to do this patrol.
Thank you. And this question is for Serena. Is the legacy of American military presence in Asia related to the policing of the AAPI community within the U.S.?
I don't know if there's actual data on that, but the fact that a lot of our police are recruited from the military might have, a relationship. And that's all I can say, in the sense that a lot of military join the force because they already have the training and the skills, but they also might have some of the biases they collected while serving in Asian countries. I don't know,
Okay. Another question for you, Serena, and also for Carl. Somebody's asking if you can comment on the U.S.-China relations as a backdrop to former President Trump's scapegoating of the Chinese for the pandemic.
Well, just historically, whenever China's been in favor, Chinese Americans have been treated better. And whenever Chinese are not in favor, we're under attack. So in the 1950s, during the Cold War, the McCarthy era, many Chinese immigrants just stopped going out because the then equivalent of ICE, right? The immigration, they were just collecting up people and trying to deport them for coming in under false papers. So there's always regardless of how anyone says I'm not from China and blah, 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 and I've been here for 4 generations, 5 generations, because everything is so racialized in the United States, people will just look at us as the forever foreigner. And it's crazy, you know. I mean, I've had people come up to me and ask me about China politics as though I'm an expert on China politics, you know. But because I'm a nosy person, I've had to, I do study up to the extent where I can, you know, turn around and say, well, what's your heritage? What do you know about Irish politics? Or what do you know about, it's a crazy thing in this society where, as I said, we don't look at each other as multidimensional, but as some stereotypical one issue or one type of person. And we need to stop that. But there's one point I really wanted to make is that all of the California Healthy Kids surveys, where they ask the students every 2 years what's happening in the school, what kind of drugs they might or might not be using. One thing that has stood out really strongly is that the racial group that reports the most being bullied are Asian students. So before the pandemic, Asians were being bullied and feel afraid to go to school. Some kids feel afraid to go to school before the pandemic. And so now with the pandemic and a year of pent-up frustration and anger, it might be directed at our Asian students. So I am really concerned that all school districts proactively look at addressing this issue. I mean, it's against all people of color and everything like that. But right now, there's a huge crisis in that Asian American students are going to be targeted as they start ending up back in the classrooms. And, you know, hearing from Vinnie just broke my heart. So anyway, we need to proactively and expressively talk about anti-Asian sentiment.
Let's just hear from Carl really quickly, and then
I will keep it short because I basically, you know, so when leadership is dividing the country and dividing us and putting all this hate against many groups, so I just want to promote this. I want our leadership do this, promote love, stop talking about stop promoting any hate, but making sure that to unify the people. Your message is strong enough, so that means promote love and stop all this hate. And making sure that, you know, also promote unity, not division. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you, our panelists. You were all outstanding. And you know, it's not every town hall where I'm fighting back tears much of the time, but thank you for sharing some very personal experiences. But I'm also heartened. I think there's hope. I think we are doing things. We need to be more aware of the resources that are out there. For all of you audience members, please help me amplify the message. If you see something, if you see someone being bullied, harassed, attacked, you call it in. Don't, or, you know, be an ally, and we can work together. But we will, as a city, look at some constructive ways we can do things, and we will definitely get these safety devices into the hands of vulnerable seniors. And again, thank you all for your time, for your attention. And remember, there's still a pandemic out there, so wear your masks. And but we're getting through it. There's light at the end of the tunnel. But thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all of us for sharing your experiences and your wisdom and resources. This was so well done. I'm very proud of all of you. Thank you, everybody. We will see you soon. Thank you so much, Sarah Henry, for making this all happen. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.